Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello and welcome to People's View. People's View is sponsored by the Nashua Republican City Committee. And if you want to find out more about the City Committee, go to their website, nashuagop.org. They meet the second Thursday of every month at the Crown Plaza. And today we have Representative Michael Reed from Ward 8, and he's running again for re-election. Welcome aboard, Mike.
Nice to see you, Carl.
And tell us, how did you enjoy your first year, or your first term?
It was fascinating. I've always had an interest in history and politics, and I've enjoyed it a lot, and I'm looking forward to a second term.
Good, good. Do you have any objective to your second term, anything you want to bring up or sponsor?
I co-sponsored a bill last term for drug testing for welfare recipients. I believe it ended up getting tabled, but I'd like to see that get back on the floor. And
that's not atypical. In a lot of them, I've had two that were tabled, or interim study, as they say.
Right.
And hopefully they'll come back too.
Eventually, I think it'll get across.
Yeah,
we'll finally vote
so.
on it. I'm in the Transportation Committee, and there was something that came up last year regarding firefighters and their CDL licenses. In all major towns and cities, all firefighters have their CDL licenses. But in North Country and out west, the volunteer fire departments, very few have their CDL licenses. There's a state law exists that allows them to drive the engines to the fire, but it doesn't say anything about driving back. So I guess an alderman was making a big deal of it and making that one person who had the CDL drive every engine back from the fire. What I'd like to see is a full-time or a part-time position created at the academy for a firefighter who is retired or somebody that can handle that position. The engines are already there. Have them trained at their stations, at their cities or towns where they are, and then send them down for their CDLs. The state picks up the cost simply at the cost of an extra firefighter who's training them. And I think that would greatly benefit the communities in North Country. Sounds
good, yeah. I think that might be something to push through, and you'll probably find out what really hung up the voting on it by the committee. But that's follow up on it. So now you're going to, for your second term, are you doing anything different in your campaign? Are you anything special?
I just got my signs in. I'm going to look at possibly collaborating with the other two gentlemen that are running with me, Bill Jorgensen and Pete Silva, in my district, in my ward and my district. And, you know, I love this state. I've lived in this city since '94. Become really fond of it, and you know, serving my constituents and my community, not just my party.
Well, give us a little bit more about your background and why, not why, but what you think your background does to help you be a better representative.
I've worked in the transportation industry for years. I travel around the country, work at convention halls, work with unions, to get freight on and off the floor, to get trade show booths built. I've made you know, contracts, agreements. I run my own business in this state. I have an AAU baseball business that I just started up last year. So I have a few backgrounds that I bring to this. And again, my love for the community. it's a demanding job.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people up at the State House, out of the 400 of us that, are retired. Some of them have businesses that allow them lots of free time, whether they're in real estate or they're lawyers, they have their own law firm. I don't have that luxury.
So have to work to put some food on the table.
Absolutely. And, it's a conflict sometimes that I have to take days off to go up there. And my traveling for a living actually enables me to take days off because I accrue a lot of comp days.
Yeah.
So, but I make all the important votes, or at least I try to. I'm never really sure when some bills are going to be brought up to the floor.
That's true too, yeah.
So you take a day off.
Tabled, yeah.
Yeah, and you're not voting on the bill that you thought you were there for. But I do try to make sure that all the important bills I am there for.
Well, I know we elected a lot of new people last time. I think it was 140 some people.
Yes.
And a lot of them are businessmen like you and do have a job and can't afford to or can't manipulate their schedule well enough. And unfortunately, a lot of good people didn't run this year because of that. So I'm glad you were able to still figure out a way of serving, if not 100%, as close to the important votes as necessary.
I enjoy it a lot, and I especially enjoy the educated voter that will come up to me and congratulate me and thank me for my service, which is
that's always
volunteer,
nice.
basically.
Basically, you're right. $100 a year, less taxes.
Absolutely.
So you like it? You're running again? And did you join any of the groups up there? Any of the coalitions or business groups? I was wondering.
I haven't.
I mean, your time is valuable, and you can't share it with everybody.
And being my first year, I wanted to observe a little more and, not just jump into something. I wanted to get the full spectrum of everything that's happening.
Yeah.
On both sides of the aisle, and what's going on down below in the well. I think by sitting back and observing, I think you'll learn a lot more in that environment.
No, I agree with you there. So now that you're going into the second term, you should be able to be better prepared. And you'd like the Transportation Committee? I assume you're going to try to be on that again.
I do. I like it a lot. It's been a lot of interesting reading. This is the New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Boating and Related Laws. Good reading.
That looks like something might put you to sleep at night.
I have quite often referred back to it because I do get questions.
Well, that's...
So it's a good item to have. I'd like to become more involved in what's going on up there now that I've had 2 years under my belt.
Yeah, it is interesting up there, and it is a lot of people are helpful. Don't you find that out?
Absolutely. A lot of the representatives that have been there a while will take the time to mentor you and tell you what's happening, when, and why certain things are happening. So it's nice to have someone experienced next to you that you can whisper to, why did you just do that? And you get a really informative
What
answer.
does that mean? Why are we doing it this way?
Right. The interesting thing is, quite often, when you read up on these bills, you find language that you don't necessarily agree with, but you know that this is the best thing put forward, and you're faced with voting on it. And there are other times that the language in the bill, you just can't vote for it, no matter how much the bill is needed. It's really a conflict, and people think that it's easy out there. There have been times when I'm undecided and I'm still reaching for that button.
Yeah.
And running out of time. You really do weigh the good and the bad of the language of the bill. And it's really like there are 400 jurors that are taking in the pros and cons of it. So no matter how much reading you do ahead of time on the bill, a good speaker can clarify things in the well.
Yes, if you're lucky enough to have them up there to clarify.
Correct.
I know.
Hoping we do.
I had the same feeling that's doggone. They could have written better language, more meaningful language. And what if? There's so many unintended consequences out of some of the writing. I've voted against a number of bills because it just wasn't written well enough.
Right.
I mean, even though I would have voted, for the theme, whatever it was about. But, we only have about, what is it, a dozen lawyers there that are writing the legal language, and sometimes they don't exactly get the point across, and they put legal language in there that messes it up a bit. I don't know if you've had that experience directly, but...
I've seen it,
Yeah.
and that doesn't include the lawyers that end up going to the well and speaking
That's
about
true.
it or against it.
That's true. But, and then the procedures, I mean, the rules that we have to operate by.
Right.
Sometimes they're a little bit confusing. I don't know if you ran into any situations where you just says, what the hell are they doing there?
Oh, several times.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to lean next to you and find out, in fact, sometimes the people next to me don't always know either, and I'll have to find somebody, seek somebody out who's been there a while and ask them. I'm sure I've asked you a few times in between breaks.
But even though I'm in my second year, I'm still learning too. There are certain people, well, that's one good thing with some experienced people that are there 5 or more years.
Right.
They have a history to lean back on. But I think in general the House has been run pretty well, don't you?
I agree. I know there are people that aren't fans of the Speaker. I happen to think that the Speaker keeps things in order. Things are run smoothly.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think there's a misinformation that's out there. He has to, herding cats in a way, as they say, but he has to keep it under control. And there are a lot of people that are very passionate about one thing or another. And, you can't just always get the Speaker's phone. You have to be recognized, and you have to limit it to certain conditions that we operate under.
Well, there's such a political divide in this country right now, not just nationally, but here locally as well. I hear all the time about signs being taken this year.
Oh yeah.
The passion right now that is out there and the split and the divide between parties is immense. And what people don't realize is that there are so many of us that are more towards the middle than they really are on either end of the spectrum. I myself consider myself, I have libertarian tendencies. I think there are some things that the government shouldn't be involved in your lives on the state and the federal level. I'm a fiscal conservative. I think you have to run the state as a business. You're accountable to everyone, not just the people that vote for you, but everyone in the state. You can't let things get out of control like it is in California. You have to be accountable. But there are certain social issues, I think, that we need to stay clear of. And I have voted my conscience that way, and I'm proud of that.
Well, I think we all have to do that. We have to vote our conscience a bit. We can't depend on the emails we get, trying to influence our vote one way or the other. I mean, to a certain extent, they do influence it, but you do have to have your principles, which you're running on. You're being elected to, because you have a history now. And the same with me. There are things that I hear back a little bit more emotional than they should be. I think people have to realize that not everybody agrees with them, and we have to operate. But I think with the principles we operated on in the last year, we balanced the budget by making sure we knew what income we would have and would only spend to that level. And I think we're going to do that again. I think the agencies up there have learned that if we're still in the majority, they're going to have to do a little bit more explaining of why they're doing certain things. Are they effective? Are you getting the right results? And if not, maybe we ought to drop that program, cut that expense out. I don't think they're doing enough evaluation of some of the work that they're doing. I mean, just like we're being brought up on our votes and everything, in a way they're being brought up on what they're supposed to be doing. They have objectives. Are you meeting the objectives? Are you doing it right? So I think we'll see more of that and tightening of the budget a little bit more.
That's a great point, Carl. 2.5 years ago, Representative Summers and I were at a charity golf match, and I don't golf that often. And we got into a debate, as we often do about politics, about things nationally, locally, with the state, and we both made a decision that day to run for state representative.
Oh, really?
And ironically, we both won. But there are lots of people out there that refuse to believe that this state was almost $1 billion in debt. And I kind of relate it to, you have a mortgage, you pay it off with your credit card, and then you say, well, I have no more mortgage. Well, it just doesn't work that way. You still have a bill to pay.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what happened before the term that we were elected.
Yeah.
And we did balance that budget.
Yeah.
We did fix that deficit. And there are still people out there that refuse to admit that it existed. And I've gotten into a few arguments with the local newspaper here with people online about that. It was real. I saw the numbers. I'm sure Carl saw the numbers too. But we did, in fact, take care of that. That was one of the things that drove me to run, that I was passionate about. I love the state, I love the community, and I wanted to do something in some small part to help. And, you know, I honestly didn't even think about 2 years from now.
Yeah.
I just wanted to help make a change. Not a hope and change, but a do and change. And I think we accomplished that. And I think the 130 Republican freshman state representatives that came in, I'm not sure any of us were really concerned about re-election. We wanted to make a change.
I think they had to see a recognition of this basic principle, if you will.
Yeah.
You work with a balanced budget. And the things that were done my first term were atrocious. I couldn't see, the state borrowed money from the university and then took out a bond to pay back the university. So over 10 years, we're winding up paying probably, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars more just for that one budget mistake, and it was $20 million. And you know, they pulled a lot of different things like that. You can't get away with that, really.
And how do you explain that to your constituents? You know, I'd be embarrassed. So.
Well, I think another, you know, in a way, I feel it's a media's problem too. They don't dig deep enough in some of those things. I know they don't have a big force of investigative reporters, but they could pick one or two and really go after it and look into the details. I mean, the editorial in the about one of the constitutional amendments that affected the rules that are set down by the Supreme Court. They attacked as the legislature was trying to separate, take over some of the responsibilities for another branch of the government. The wording of that amendment was written by two of the justices of the Supreme Court. It was done to clarify the responsibilities of both arms of the government. And it was satisfactory to them. So we weren't trying to separate that from a legislative standpoint, but we're just trying to correct previous wordings.
Right.
And they were completely off wall on what they assumed without even looking into it. So I don't know, but let's see what we can do with this coming session. I think it'll be a good session again. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up before we close the interview?
Well, the unemployment figures came out today.
Oh, yeah.
7.8%.
Yeah.
Ironically, a couple days after our president didn't have such a good showing. I really think that the U6 and the LPR are much better indicators than the U3 report.
The U6 being the underemployment plus the unemployment.
Right, and the LPR being at 63% right now is really a much better indicator. So I know there's a lot of excitement about it being at 7.8%, but it's really not a true indicator, and it doesn't take into account the people that are off the rolls. So
and the U6 has remained the same at 14 point something percent.
Right. So I think we have a long way to go. I'd like to see a much better continued effort by this legislature to continue to bring jobs into New Hampshire. I know there was a lot of
Well, there are a number of things that were being done, and the Business Council is still very active, and they're going through their session now of lining up all the business-friendly legislation, so we can really start with a big package of things that we're changing. And we have an ongoing Rules and Regulations Commission, which is now looking to try to not do away with rules and regulations, but make them more friendly, accomplishing what you want to accomplish without hitting people with a sledgehammer or heavy fines like was being done in the past.
I think that's the biggest thing that this legislature needs to make its mark on for this coming 2 years, is bringing more jobs into New
Good.
Hampshire.
Well, let's hope you can vote along that line, too, and get elected and help us out.
I look forward to it.
Okay, I look forward to it, and thank you again for that.
Thanks, Carl.
And thank you for listening in. Don't forget to go to the website for the Nashua Republican City Committee, NashuaGOP.org, and see if you want to help out and join us in this coming election. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.